Though Huey Long was not able to get Big Charity built before he died, the structure contains a tribute to him and his system of government. Sculptor Enrique Alvarez designed an aluminum grill over the main entrance to the hospital. In the center is a flying duck. It is a reference to the dedication and deduct box into which state employees put cash contributions to Long's campaigns. They were required to remit a percentage of their salary on designated paydays. When this was called for, the word was passed that the ducks were flying. Governor Richard Leach continued the practice and was not amused at Alvarez's reference. According to Alvarez, a man with a hacksaw was sent to exercise the offering bird. He was intercepted by Times-Picayune reporter who told him that since the PWA had helped pay for the building, his duck hunting would be a federal offense. The duck remains. Alvarez had another interesting story about the building of Big Charity. He claims that Leon Weiss was asked almost every day to make money in amounts of $2,000 to $10,000 out of hospital funds to pay off people who were owed money by Governor Leach. He alleges that fire escapes were omitted to save money. In one case, Weiss is said to have approved the omission of one of the 6 screws in each door hinge at a savings of $5,000. It's a good story, and it might well have happened on one of Weiss's other buildings, but it probably didn't on this one. This project was inspected and audited in excruciating detail. Anything that might have escaped notice or been willfully overlooked during construction would have been caught in the post-construction investigations. There were at least 4 investigations of the bidding process, most having to do with equipment. When the PWA decided that the bidding for the contract to provide sterilization equipment was improper, it cost $101,800. It was eliminated from the grant. The most serious bidding had regularly involved a contract for the pilings undergrading the main building. It was discovered that the competitors for this contract had all included an estimating fee in their bids. This was paid by the winning contractor, Farnsworth and Company, to the New Orleans chapter of the Associated General Contractors of America, which divided it among the losing contractors. This led to the prosecution and conviction of Farnsworth and the association. As of the end of 1939, 355 changes orders had been submitted for approval. The PWA analyzed 339 of them. Their total cost would have been over $850,000. Almost $150,000 of this was disapproved by the PWA. The rest were withdrawn. In the final reckoning, all these change orders added only $17,732,050 to the total cost of the $12 million project. The investigation noted that Weiss authorized numerous charges and changes himself without the knowledge of the PWA or the hospital. Many of these were due to the architects, inadequate research or investigation of conditions to be encountered, lack of coordination of the respective technical staffs of the offices of the consulting engineers and the office of the architects, and a situation approaching incompetence with respect to the mechanical layout and analysis of substitute cost involved in the reissue of pile layouts. Investigators found various corners cut by contractors, for which the contractors had to reimburse the hospital. However, they found no evidence of graft in connection with the actions of the owner, its architects, or other officials. Not only were the architects and contractors scrutinized, subcontractors were audited as well. Even those who had been eliminated from the project or paid directly by the hospital, rather through the PWA, were audited by the PWA. They included some projects as low as $1,400, as well as those of several hundreds of thousands. The building itself gone over thoroughly by the PWA Special Agent Gilbert B. Carter. His 12-page report goes into great detail, listing things like aluminum trim omitted in phone booths. Consistent omission of hinge screws would most likely have been noticed in an inspection at this level. In another study of the hospital's finances covering this period, Stella O'Connor concluded that despite wholesale scandals, which later resulted in prison sentences for high state officials, as well as contractors and architects associated with the project, comparatively little fraud was connected with the hospital construction. She notes further, a force of 30 federal investigators was unable to find factual evidence of graft. Though it took years of struggle within the state between the state and the federal government, Big Charity was built. It became one of the world's great hospitals and continues to stand, though a bit lower than intended, as a model of healthcare for indigents years before modern federal healthcare programs were put into effect, according to Dr. John Salvaggio, author of New Orleans Charity Hospital. How long it will continue to stand, however, is an open question. Because of damage and from flooding and subsequent infestation of mold, officials of Louisiana State University Hospitals, which now runs Charity, want to replace it. After Hurricane Katrina, doctors, nurses, military personnel, and civil engineers from Germany worked with hydraulic pumps to clean up the building. But once the first 3 floors were scrubbed and the doctors pronounced them ready for use, the medical personnel were ordered out of the building. Dr. Juliet Sassi, Director of Emergency Medical Services for New Orleans, believes the building was unusable. She believes the building was usable. Hospital officials have declared it unsafe. New construction is always appealing, but its apparent financial advantage over renovations may be deceptive. Bringing down such a solid building may be more difficult and costly as it first appears. Whether Big Charity comes down or survives to continue services to the city, its 3/4 of a century contribution should not be forgotten. In recent days, you can see security outside of Charity Hospital 24/7. I highly implore everybody not to try to break in to investigate, even though the temptation certainly is quite appealing. There's been rumors of the building being used for future condos. Perhaps it will be torn down after all. But nothing is set in stone. The sad thing as well is when Charity Hospital closed its doors, many were forced to the streets. Their ailments, both physical and mental, they were swept aside and forgotten. Many of the mentally ill still wander the streets today in New Orleans, perhaps at one time being cured and treated at Charity Hospital. Exerted permission from the Building Louisiana, the Legacy of Public Works Administration, University Press of Mississippi, 2007, by Robert D. Leinine, Jr., Faculty Associate of the School of Social Work at Arizona State University. to succor the sick. Nothing being more certain than death, and nothing more certain than its hour, being stricken with a dangerous bodily malady, but sane of mind. I desire to settle my affairs, explaining how I intend that my last will be carried out by testamentary executor. A sale shall be made of all that remains, which, together with my small lot, I bequeath to serve in perpetuity to the founding of a hospital for the sick of the New Orleans, without anyone being able to change my purpose and to secure the things necessary to succor the sick. These words, written more than 250 years ago, are part of the last will and testament of Jean-Louis, dated November 16th, 1735. Jean-Louis, a French seaman who built boats in New Orleans, bequeathed his holdings to the founding and maintenance of Charity Hospital, a hospital for the indigent sick of the colony of New Orleans. Charity Hospital opened its doors at Chartres in Bienville Street on May 10th, 1736. It is the second oldest continuing public hospital in the United States. The oldest is Bellevue in New York, which opened its doors on March 31st, 1736, 1.5 months before Charity. Charity Hospital was initially called Hospital of St. John, or Le Hospital des Bras de la Charité, Hospital for the Poor. Charity Hospital outgrew its first location and was moved to a second building in the year 1743 near a ship-turning basin at the edge of town, now known as Basin Street. In 1779, this structure was nearly destroyed by a hurricane. Only the kitchen and storehouse were left standing. It served as the hospital quarters, holding 6 beds. Charity was rebuilt a third time in 1785 in the same location. It was called the San Carlos Hospital in honor of King Charles III, King of Spain. The Isle of Orleans was ceded to Spain in 1763. The new structure had 24 beds, but was lost to the fire in 1809. 3 patients died in the blaze, and a 4th died soon after from fatigue and removal. After the San Carlos was destroyed, patients were housed in the upper gallery of the Cabildo, then serving as city hall. For 1 month. Following this, they were moved by the Jordan residence in the Faubourg Marigny for 6 months, until Madame Jordan reclaimed her home. Finally, patients were moved to the dilapidated De La Verne plantation for 5 years, while awaiting the building of a new hospital. In 1815, the 4th Charity Hospital was erected. The site was on Canal Street, where the Fairmont Hotel is now. Then, a remote swamp area of the city. In only 3 years, the conditions were so deplorable that a group of visiting citizens reported to the governor that Charity served no purpose than to confine the wretched and compel them to die in a place contrary to their choice. Patients were found almost abandoned. The hospital was dirty, and with a lack of blankets, sheets, and laundry facilities, it was deemed a deep disgrace to any civilized or Christian country. Chickens roosted in the hospital rooms, and their offal covered the furniture. Patients slept on mattresses on which were the visible marks of the putrid discharges of those who had died on them of the most pestilential diseases. The 5th Charity Hospital was built in 1832, and in 1834 the Daughters of Charity assumed control of operations. Charity enjoyed a time of skillful nursing care. The Daughters of Charity opened their own hospital, Hotel Dieu, in 1859, after more than 100 years of service in the same building. The 6th and Kern Hospital was built in 1939, and at the time it was the second largest hospital in the United States, with 2,680 beds. I would like to thank the Medical Center of Louisiana, www.mclno.org, as well as 64parishes.com, coastcitytours.com, for research in this episode. If you liked today's episode, please leave a like, subscribe, share this video, follow me on Instagram at Ryan Mckern, TikTok at Ryan Mckern, and on Twitter at The Wicked Webs Pod, as well as Facebook, The Wicked Webs Weave page. Thank you again for joining me. Sit back and dwell in the darkness, my friends, and until we meet again in a hospital or perhaps foreboding street near you, au revoir.